The rain had stopped only an hour ago, but the streets still shimmered under the glow of the streetlights. Puddles reflected the soft orange light, and the air held that faint, clean scent after a storm. Keanu Reeves walked slowly along the narrow street, his hands in his pockets, the collar of his coat turned up against the cool night air. Most people who passed him didn't look twice, and he liked it that way. He was not here to be recognized. He was here because something inside told him this night would matter. He had finished a long day on set, his voice still heavy from the quiet conversations and emotional scenes he had filmed. The city was alive, but in a calm way, as if it too was trying to catch its breath. And that's when he noticed her, Ana de Armas, sitting on the steps of a closed cafe, her hair still damp, her coat pulled tight around her. She looked like she was waiting for something, but the way her eyes stayed fixed on the ground suggested she might not know what that something was. Keanu slowed his pace, debating whether to walk past or stop. They knew each other, of course, worked together, shared moments on set. But this felt different. This was not a red carpet. This was not scripted. This was real life. And in real life, people often needed someone without saying a word. "Hey," he said softly as he reached her. She looked up, her eyes catching the faint light, and for a moment she didn't speak. He saw something there. Not sadness exactly, but a kind of tiredness that went deeper than just a long day. "Keanu," she said finally, her voice quiet. "What are you doing here?" "Just walking," he replied, glancing around. "What about you? You look like you've been here a while." Ana hesitated, then gave a small shrug. "I didn't want to go home yet." She looked down again, playing with the edge of her sleeve. "Sometimes it's easier to sit outside than to be in a room alone." Keanu understood more than she knew. He knew what it was like to feel the weight of silence pressing in, to search for a reason to stay outside just a little longer. Without saying much more, he sat down beside her. The concrete step was cold, but he didn't mind. They sat in silence for a while, listening to the faint sound of cars in the distance. After a few minutes, he asked, "Want to walk with me?" She looked at him, searching his face for something, maybe a reason, maybe an excuse to say yes. And then she nodded. They walked without a clear destination, their footsteps in sync, their breath forming faint clouds in the cool air. Ana began to speak in small pieces, fragments of thoughts she had been holding in. She talked about how the pressure of her career sometimes felt heavier than she let on, how she missed the simplicity of days before her name was known, how some people only seemed to see the roles she played and not the person she was. Keanu didn't interrupt. He had learned that sometimes the kindest thing you could do was listen. Really listen. His silence wasn't empty. It was a quiet space where her words could land safely. As they turned onto a quieter street, they passed an old man struggling with grocery bags. Without hesitation, Keanu stepped forward, offering to carry them. The man hesitated, but eventually let him help. Ana followed, taking another bag without being asked. When they reached the man's apartment, he thanked them with a smile so genuine it seemed to warm the cold night air. Keanu nodded, wished him a good evening, and they kept walking. Ana glanced at Keanu as they continued down the street. "You didn't have to do that," she said softly. "Neither did you," he replied. Something shifted in her expression then, a small spark of light, where before there had been only quiet shadows. By the time they reached the corner where their paths would normally split, neither wanted to say goodbye yet. They found themselves at an all-night tea shop, stepping inside to the warmth and the faint scent of jasmine. They sat by the window, steam rising from their cups, watching the rain begin again outside. In that small moment, two people, 2 cups of tea, and the simple act of walking together on a cold night, something unspoken passed between them. It wasn't romance, not yet. It wasn't friendship, not exactly. It was something else, something quieter, but just as powerful. It was the beginning of an understanding. And they didn't know it yet. But this night, this walk, this shared act of kindness, both to a stranger and to each other, would ripple far beyond the moment, touching lives they had not yet met. That night, Keanu Reeves and Ana de Armas shared one act of kindness, and it was only the beginning. The next morning, the city looked different. The rain had washed everything clean, leaving the streets glistening under a pale, gentle sunlight. Ana woke earlier than usual, but not because she felt rested. It was more like her mind hadn't stopped turning all night. She kept thinking about the walk with Keanu, the quiet way he listened, and the old man with the grocery bags. There was something about how it had all happened, so natural, so unplanned, that stayed with her. Most days in her life were mapped out to the minute: schedules, interviews, rehearsals, shoots. Last night had been different. It had been free. And that freedom was strangely rare for her now. She sat at her kitchen table with a cup of coffee, staring out the window. Her phone lit up with messages. Agents, producers, friends asking where she was. She ignored them for now. Instead, she sent one simple text to Keanu. "Thank you for last night." She didn't expect him to reply right away, but within minutes her phone buzzed. "Anytime. Want to meet again later?" She smiled. Later that afternoon, they met at a quiet park on the edge of the city. It was one of those places where the noise seemed to fall away as soon as you stepped inside. The air smelled of damp grass, and the only sound was the faint rustle of leaves. Keanu was already there, sitting on a bench, feeding crumbs to a small group of pigeons. When he saw her, he stood, offering that gentle smile she had come to notice more than once. "So," he began, "how's your day been?" Ana sat beside him, letting out a slow breath. "Busy, but I kept thinking about last night." She glanced at him. "It made me realize something." "What's that?" "That I can't remember the last time I slowed down. Not just in my schedule, I mean in my head. You made it feel safe to stop for a moment." Keanu nodded, as if he understood completely. "We forget sometimes that it's okay to stop." He paused, then added, "I used to think moving forward was always the answer. But sometimes you have to stand still to see what's around you." They walked along the park's winding path, and Ana began to share more. Things she didn't often say out loud. About the pressure to always be perfect, about the loneliness that followed even in the busiest moments, about the way fame made people treat her differently. Keanu didn't try to solve it or offer quick answers. He simply listened, his presence steady and unshaken. Every now and then he would ask a quiet question, the kind that made her think more deeply than she expected. As they reached the far end of the park, they noticed a young boy sitting on the grass, hugging his knees. His backpack lay open beside him, books scattered on the ground. His eyes were red as if he had been crying. Ana knelt down beside him. "Hey, are you okay?" The boy shook his head, not looking up. "I missed my bus," he muttered. "And my mom's at work. I don't know how to get home." Keanu crouched down, too, his voice calm. "Where do you live?" the boy told them, and Keanu quickly checked his phone. "It's not far. We can walk you there, if you're okay with that." The boy looked between them, uncertain at first, but then nodded. So they walked, slowly, making sure the boy felt safe. Along the way, Ana asked him about school, about his favorite subjects, about what he wanted to be when he grew up. His answers came out shy at first, but then more freely. When they reached his street, his grandmother came rushing out of a small house, relief flooding her face. She thanked them over and over, holding the boy tightly. As they left, Ana felt something shift inside her again. "It's strange," she said as they headed back toward the park. I don't know that boy. I'll probably never see him again, but I feel lighter somehow. Keanu smiled faintly. That's what kindness does. It doesn't just help them, it helps you too. They stopped at a small bench before leaving the park. The sun was lower now, painting the sky in shades of gold and pale pink. The air had grown cooler, but neither of them moved to leave. Ana looked at him then, her voice quiet. You know, Keanu, I think you're teaching me something without meaning to. He raised an eyebrow slightly, curious. What's that? That maybe the most important parts of life aren't in the big moments. They're in the little ones, the walks, the listening, the strangers you help without expecting anything back. Keanu didn't respond right away. Instead, he looked out at the fading light, his expression thoughtful. Then he said, maybe that's the only real thing that matters. And though neither of them said it, they both knew this was no longer just 2 nights of chance meetings. Something deeper was beginning to form. Something that would matter far more than they realized. That evening, as they went their separate ways, Ana felt the unspoken weight she had been carrying start to lift. Not because all her problems were gone, but because
she was no longer carrying them alone, Mucher. 2 days passed before they saw each other again. Ana had been pulled into a whirlwind of work. Early call times, interviews, bright lights that left her feeling strangely hollow when they faded. Keanu had been busy too, but both of them kept thinking about their last walk, about the boy in the park, about the quiet warmth that had stayed long after they went home. When Ana finally messaged him late one evening, it was only 2 words. Need air. His reply came in seconds. Where? They met near the same cafe where she had been sitting alone the first night. The streets were busier this time. Music spilling from bars, the hum of conversation, the low growl of engines idling at traffic lights. But there was something in her face that told him this night was not going to be like the others. What happened? He asked softly as they started walking. She kept her eyes on the ground for a while before answering. Nothing dramatic, just one of those days. Everyone's smiling at me, asking for more than I can give, and me pretending I have it to give. He didn't press her for more. Instead, they walked in silence until the crowd thinned and the noise softened. They were halfway down a quiet side street when they noticed a commotion ahead, a group of men standing near the entrance of a small alley, voices low but sharp. Something about the way their shoulders hunched and their eyes darted made both of them slow their steps. Then they heard it, a muffled voice from inside the alley. A woman's voice. Ana stopped. Keanu, someone's in there. He glanced at her, his jaw tightening slightly. Stay here, he said quietly. But she shook her head immediately. No, I'm not staying here. They moved closer together, the sound of the woman's voice becoming clearer now. Pleading, anxious. Keanu stepped into the mouth of the alley first, his posture calm but deliberate. The men turned toward him, their expressions shifting when they saw who it was, but not enough to fully back away. Everything okay here? His voice was steady, almost casual, but it carried weight. One of the men smirked. Mind your business. Ana stepped forward then, moving to the side so she could see past them. The woman was pressed against the wall, clutching her bag, her eyes wide. Keanu didn't raise his voice. She's coming with us. There was a moment of tension, a stillness where it felt like the air itself was waiting. Then one of the men muttered something under his breath, and they stepped aside, letting the woman pass. She rushed toward Ana, who gently took her by the arm and guided her out of the alley. When they reached the main street again, the woman was shaking. She thanked them quickly, almost breathlessly, and hurried away into the crowd. Ana stood there for a moment, her hands still cold from the adrenaline. That could have gone differently, she said quietly. Keanu nodded, his expression unreadable. Yeah, but sometimes you just have to step in. They walked for a while without speaking, both of them aware that the night had changed. It wasn't just about walks and tea anymore. It was about trust. about knowing the other person would stand beside you when things didn't feel safe. Eventually, they found themselves back at the park bench from before. Anna sat down heavily, her breath still unsteady. "You didn't even think twice back there," she said. Keanu looked at her, his voice soft, but certain. "Neither did you." There was a pause then, the kind that says more than words. The city around them carried on, cars passing, people laughing somewhere in the distance. But here, on this quiet bench, it felt like a small circle of safety had formed. Anna realized something in that moment. It wasn't just that Keanu had been there to listen. It wasn't just that he had helped strangers. It was that he saw her. Not the actress, not the image, but the person who refused to walk away when someone needed help. And without saying it out loud, she knew she would do the same for him. That night, as they said goodbye, she felt a strange mix of calm and energy. Like the world was still dangerous, but less so because someone was willing to walk into the dark with her.
The night after the alley incident, Ana kept thinking about Keanu's face. Not just the calm he showed when stepping in, but the flicker of something else. Something heavier, when he told the men, "She's coming with us." It wasn't just bravery. It felt personal. They didn't see each other for 3 days. Work, life, and exhaustion kept them apart, but the thought of that moment stayed with her. Finally, she sent him a message late in the evening. "You free to walk?" "This time," he replied after a pause. "Yeah, but let's go somewhere quieter." He picked her up in an old, well-kept car that looked like it had stories of its own. They drove out of the city, the lights fading behind them, until the roads turned narrow and lined with tall, whispering trees. They stopped near a small lake. The water was still, catching the reflection of the stars above. There was no noise here except the faint lapping of water against the shore. For a long time they just stood there, the cold air biting at their cheeks, their breath visible in the starlight. Finally, Keanu spoke. "You've been wondering why I didn't hesitate that night." Ana looked at him, caught off guard. Yeah, it felt like you knew exactly what to do, like you've done it before." He kept his eyes on the water. "When I was younger, someone I cared about was in a bad situation. I saw it happening, but I froze. I told myself someone else would step in. No one did." His voice was steady, but the weight in it was unmistakable. "By the time I moved, it was too late. Nothing fatal, but it changed her. Changed how she saw the world. And I've lived with the thought that if I had acted sooner, maybe she'd still trust people the way she used to." Ana felt the air tighten between them. This was not the kind of story people shared lightly. He went on, "Since then, I decided, if I'm there, I act, even if it's risky, even if it's messy, because doing nothing, that's worse." For a while, neither of them spoke. Ana could hear her own heartbeat in the quiet. She wanted to say something that would make it better, but some truths didn't need fixing. They just needed space to be heard. She finally said, "You couldn't save her from everything. No one can. But you've saved people since. That matters." Keanu looked at her then, and for the first time since she'd known him, she saw his guard lower completely. "Maybe, but it never feels like enough." They sat on a weathered bench near the shore, their eyes on the rippling water. Ana thought about all the moments in her own life when she had wished someone would step in. She realized she had never told anyone those stories. Not really. "When I was new to the industry," she began slowly, "I trusted people I shouldn't have. And when things went wrong, the ones who could have helped didn't. They looked away. They told me to handle it." Her voice tightened, and Keanu stayed silent, letting her speak. "I promised myself I wouldn't need anyone after that, but that's a lonely way to live. I didn't realize how lonely until these walks." A small smile touched his lips then. Not because what she said was light, but because it was real. Sounds like we've both been keeping promises that hurt more than they help. They stayed there until the air grew colder, their conversation turning softer, touching on memories they didn't often let out into the open. It wasn't about solving each other's pasts. It was about sharing the weight so neither had to carry it alone anymore. On the drive back, Ana watched the quiet profile of Keanu's face in the dim glow of the dashboard. She realized something she didn't expect. His kindness wasn't just for others. It was also a way he was still trying to forgive himself. And she wondered if, maybe, the same was true for her. A week passed before they met again. Not because they didn't want to see each other, but because life had a way of pulling them in different directions. Still, they sent small messages, photos of something that made them laugh, a short line about a busy day, a quiet miss our walks. When they finally met, it wasn't planned. Ana was leaving a small bookstore just before closing when she saw him across the street. He was leaning against his motorcycle, helmet in hand, looking like he'd been waiting for someone but not in a hurry. "You stalking me now?" she teased as she crossed over. He smiled faintly. "Lucky timing. Or maybe the universe just felt like we needed to talk." They decided to walk again, though the night was colder than usual. The streets were quieter, and a thin fog hung low, curling around the street lamps. After a few minutes, they passed a little diner with fogged-up windows. Inside, an elderly woman was sitting alone at a corner booth, staring out at the street with an untouched cup of coffee in front of her. Something about her posture, the way her hands were folded tightly, the faraway look in her eyes, made Ana stop. "Keanu?" she said softly, nodding toward the window. "Look at her." He followed her gaze. "You want to go in?" Ana hesitated. "I don't know. Maybe she just wants to be alone." Keanu's voice was calm. "Or maybe she's waiting for someone who's not coming." They stepped inside. The diner smelled of coffee and fresh pie, and the warmth was immediate after the cold street. Ana approached the woman's table gently. "Hi. I hope I'm not bothering you. Are you okay?" The woman looked up slowly. Her voice was soft but steady. "My husband used to meet me here every Friday night for 30 years. He passed last month. I thought maybe, if I came here tonight, it would feel the same." Ana felt her throat tighten. Keanu slid into the booth across from her without asking, his presence quiet but grounding. "Do you mind if we keep you company for a bit?" The woman's lips trembled into the smallest smile. "I'd like that." They talked for over an hour. She told them stories about her husband, how he used to write her little notes on napkins, how he made the worst pancakes but insisted on cooking every Sunday, how they once got lost on a road trip and ended up finding their favorite spot by accident. When she began to tire, Keanu called a taxi to take her home. Before she left, she reached into her bag and handed Ana a folded napkin. "My husband used to say kindness was like a stone in water," she said. "The ripples go further than you can see. You two, keep throwing stones." Outside, the night felt different. The fog seemed lighter somehow, the air warmer. "Do you realize," Ana said as they walked, "that if we hadn't stopped, she would have sat there alone all night?" Keanu nodded. And maybe the next time she needed someone, she wouldn't bother looking. They passed a bus stop where a young man was sketching under the dim light. He glanced up as they walked by, his eyes catching theirs for a second before darting back to his notebook. Ana slowed. "Want to see what he's drawing?" Keanu chuckled. "You really can't walk past a stranger without wondering their story, can you?" "Guess not," she said, smiling. They approached him, and after a brief hesitation, the young man showed them his sketch, a scene of the diner they had just left, the elderly woman inside, and two figures standing in the doorway. "I saw you go in," he explained shyly. And I don't know. It just felt like something important was happening. Ana and Keanu exchanged a look. The ripple was already moving. That night, as they walked home, neither of them spoke much. They didn't need to. The feeling was enough. The quiet knowledge that their shared kindness was beginning to touch people they didn't even know. And in some unspoken way, they both knew something bigger was coming. Something that would test everything they had been building together. It was 2 weeks before they saw each other again. Not because they had grown apart, but because life had suddenly turned heavy for both of them. Keanu had been filming long days on set, his mind drained from playing a role that demanded every ounce of his focus. Ana had been flying between cities, caught in interviews, photo shoots, and moments where she smiled for cameras while feeling empty inside. Still, when Anna's message came late one night, "I need to see you," Keanu didn't hesitate. "Tell me where." She chose the park bench where they had talked so many times before. By the time Keanu arrived, she was already there, her coat pulled tight, her hair moving gently in the night breeze. She looked up at him, and he could see in her eyes that something was different. "What happened?" he asked quietly. She swallowed hard before answering. "Someone I know, someone close. They're in trouble, serious trouble. I want to help, but if I do, I'll be risking everything. My career, maybe even more." Keanu sat beside her. "What kind of trouble?" She hesitated, then said, "He's being accused of something he didn't do. I know he's innocent, but the people going after him, they have power. They could bury me if I get involved." Keanu didn't speak right away. He understood the weight of what she was saying. Helping could cost her. Doing nothing could cost her even more, but in a different way. Finally, he asked, "What does your heart say?" Ana looked down at her hands. "It says help him, but my head keeps reminding me of everything I could lose." Keanu leaned forward, his elbows on his knees. "You already know what I'd say." She gave a small, sad smile. "Yeah. Act. Don't freeze." There was a long silence between them, the kind of silence that felt like standing on the edge of a cliff. The next day, Ana made her choice. She went public, spoke out for her friend, gave proof that would clear his name, and refused to back down when the backlash started. The media storm was instant. Some praised her courage, others tore her apart. Keanu stayed close through it all. When she was called for interviews, he walked with her to the studio doors. When the headlines grew ugly, he was there with tea and quiet conversation. When she broke down one night, wondering if she'd done the right thing, he reminded her of the woman in the diner, the boy in the park, the stranger in the alley. "You can't control how people react," he told her. "You can only control whether you acted with kindness and truth." And you did. Weeks passed. Slowly, the noise died down. The truth held. Her friend was cleared. And while Ana had lost some connections in the industry, she found she didn't miss them. The people who mattered stayed. One afternoon, she met Keanu again at the park. The air was warm, sunlight spilling through the trees. They sat in their usual spot, watching a father teach his daughter how to ride a bicycle. "You know," Ana said softly, "I think that woman in the diner was right. Kindness really does ripple out, even when it costs you something." Keanu nodded. "And sometimes, especially when it costs you something." They sat in the easy silence they had come to know well. No need to fill it, no rush to leave. As they stood to go, Ana turned to him. "You've taught me a lot, you know." "Me?" he said with a faint smile. "Yeah. That slowing down matters. That listening matters. That kindness isn't just about helping others. It's about letting yourself be the kind of person you'd want to meet on your worst day." Keanu didn't respond right away. Instead, he looked at her for a moment, then said, "You've taught me too, that even when you've been let down before, it's still worth stepping in, still worth trusting." They walked out of the park side by side, the late afternoon sun following them down the path. They didn't know where life would take them next. Work would pull them apart again, cities would change, new challenges would come. But they knew this. One night on a quiet street after the rain, they had shared an act of kindness. And that simple moment had started something that neither of them would ever let go of. And somewhere, far beyond their sight, the ripples kept moving.